ulinifanya nione umbali nami. Ukweli ni kuwa uliposema hutaniacha kamwe, hivyo tu ndivyo unavyotenda. Na hulali pia waniwaza. Baba, nipe uvumilivu, uvumilivu. Baba, nipe uvumilivu, uvumilivu. Siku zangu zote nikungoje. Uvumilivu, uvumilivu, uvumilivu. Yesu, nitakungoja Yesu, nitakungoja, 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 ninakungoja Yesu, ninakungoja, 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 nitakungoja Yesu, nitakungoja, 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 ninakungoja Yesu, ninakungoja, ninakungoja, ninakungoja. Nitakungoja Yesu, nitakungoja, 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 nitakungoja. Baba, nitakungoja, nitakungoja,
good afternoon, everyone. It's so lovely to have you watching this afternoon. And we are delighted to have our panelists today to discuss the topic of the science of the vaccine, of vaccine science. We've been talking about the COVID-19 vaccine. We did that last week, and we looked at the issues surrounding that. And today we'll be pushing it a little further and look at the science of this vaccine and the related issues around the vaccine. So with me on set are two amazing medics, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves. On my right is Dr. Frida. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Pastor Maggie. My name is Frida Njogundongwe. I'm a medical doctor and public health specialist. I'm really quite happy to be here. Thank you.
Karibu sana. We are so delighted to have you. And on my left, we have another medical expert.
Yeah, thank you, Pastor Maggie. My name is Kenneth Ogendo. I am a public health specialist and a life and fitness coach, and happy to be here again. Thank you.
I'm so delighted that you're here. And for our viewers, I want to give you a very, very warm welcome and tell you, this is the place to be, Midweek Vibes. And the reason is this: you get to hear expert opinion and advice on the issues that affect you. So I want to encourage you now to tell your friends and post your questions. We want to respond to every question that you might have. So without further ado, I want us to go straight and ask this question. What's the science of vaccine? What is in it? Is there some content we can read and look at? And the background for this is there's so much trepidation around the vaccine. People are averse to this vaccine. And not just Kenya, not just Mamlaka Hiyo Chapel. It's globally, people have this aversion to this, something they feel they don't know, they don't understand. Could it be that the science of it could help if they knew what it was?
Thank you. Really, the vaccine, and I really want to just say that we've had very many vaccines over the all the childhood vaccines and many other vaccines that we take. The vaccine really is just the chemical composition. There is water, there is fat, there is an active ingredient. That's really what the vaccine is made of. I know there have been many concerns that there might be microchips, there might be other things that be able to track you. Really, the vaccine, if you look at it, I think even I'd ask anyone who's a bit concerned to actually walk to where the vaccination and look at it. It's a clear liquid, just like the one that children get during most of their vaccines, and that's really it. That's what it's made of. There are no microchips. There are no, I don't know what else is of concern to several
So what's
people.
the active ingredient?
So the vaccines are made of different, they use different technologies. So some of them have got an mRNA, messenger RNA. That is like the genetic material that will actually trigger, which tells your cells to produce. So for instance, the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines are mRNA virus. I'll just go a little bit into the science of it. Whenever your body needs to produce a protein, RNA tells the body what protein to produce. So this mRNA that comes now in the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine comes and instructs the body to produce a spike protein. Like, I think we are all quite familiar with the spike protein of the virus.
And maybe not. So you could help us understand what that is as well.
Okay, sorry. I think if you've had a look at pictures of the virus or even what people are showing, as they do a lot of communication, it's a sort of circular-ish structure with a lot of spikes.
Yes.
Yeah. So those spikes are called the spike proteins, what the body, what the virus uses to attach to the body and enter.
Yes.
So now the messenger RNA vaccine instructs the body to produce something like that spike protein so that it can be recognized by your body as a foreign body or foreign element, and then your body is able to produce antibodies and other immune components to fight it.
Yeah.
But this mRNA doesn't enter your nucleus. I know people are concerned that it's going to change the genetic code. It does not enter the nucleus. It remains in the cytoplasm. A cell, I think if you remember in our biology, a cell has got the outer membrane, then the cytoplasm is a fluid inside, and then inside where the genetic code is contained is called the nucleus. So this mRNA does not enter the nucleus, so it doesn't interfere at all with your genetic makeup. For sure. So it's it comes and releases the mRNA into the cytoplasm, that fluid around within the cell, which then goes and instructs the cell to produce, the spike protein. Then your immune response will see that spike protein and learn to fight it. We have other vaccines, such as maybe the AstraZeneca one, the Sputnik, Johnson & Johnson. This is a viral vector vaccine. So what this one does, it uses a safe virus. For instance, the flu virus, an adenovirus. So what the scientists have done, they've actually put something onto that virus, especially the spike protein, so that the body, so then they injected with that safe weakened virus that actually will not cause you to be sick. But it has some material, the spike protein, that actually then your body will still recognize and create antibodies against. Then we have another kind of virus, another kind of vaccine, like the Sinovac vaccine, which uses an attenuated virus. Attenuated means weakened virus. It's live, but it's weakened. So it will not be able to cause you COVID. So they use that. Then once your body again sees it, it's able to produce the antibodies and other immune factors to fight it. So that's how vaccines work. Vaccines actually, their goal is to actually come and give your body a little taste of the disease they're trying to prevent, either by, but in a way that it won't make you sick, either because it's weakened or it's only a component of it. Then your body learns to develop antibodies and to trigger the rest of the immune response. So that later on, when your body encounters this, it will remember that we've met this before and we've developed antibodies to it. Let us go and fight it.
Fantastic. Ken,
Yes.
do you have something to add to strengthen that?
Yes, I might add something there, Maggie. And one thing, you asked about COVID science.
Yes.
And
The vaccine.
even from a global or macro level, science is at play. Science is all about evidence. Before they create these vaccines, the manufacturing companies, the Pfizers of this world and the AstraZenecas of this world, they have to go to what we call the preclinical phase. And there they try this with mice and monkeys. Sometimes people wonder, why did God create mice, monkeys? They are there for a purpose. And one of the purposes, you cannot try this vaccine creation with the human being first. So there's a preclinical phase. And that is targeting the mice and monkeys, for example. And thereon, you move to the first phase, phase 1, where you test it. After you've proved that it generates an immune response in the mice and monkey, after you've seen it does not kill the mice or monkey. Remember, they also have blood and veins just like us, just like the other animals. Then you are a bit confident as a scientist. Now I can take this to the next level, and that is phase 1. At phase 1, then, you try with a small group of people, and you find there was a lot of research and experimentation in Brazil and USA, where they were able to know, for instance, you might use 1 dose, others like Johnson's is 1 dose, others are 2 doses. So they had to do what I call preclinical trials. So the phase 1 is targeting a small group of people. And there you're testing whether this can work. And then you go to phase 2 and you increase the sample size and test more people to establish its effectiveness and safety. And then at phase 3, you enlarge it to wide areas. For example, they tried it in Brazil, they tried it in USA, and the science behind it was confirmed to be true. So you can imagine, those are 4 phases. Preclinical, then you have clinical phase 1, clinical phase 2, clinical phase 3, and all that is to ensure that this vaccine is safe for human use. And they also have to subject it to the FDA. For example, in the US, in Kenya, we subject it to the PPBB, that's the pharmaceutical board, and they ensure that there is not going to be any adverse events happening to the human body. And that's why we are confident. That's why WHO has approved of this virus. I mean, not virus, have approved of this vaccine. We are talking about this virus vaccine. That's why WHO has approved this vaccine so that we can all confidently utilize it. Now, to add to the great points that Dr. Frida has mentioned, I will not go, she nailed it so well. I will just say that it doesn't cause infertility. We just want to reiterate that. It does not change your DNA. In fact, in the last 2 decades, we've been trying mRNA vaccines. And they have been seen to be working with Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. But no, I've not heard, maybe people can correct us here, I've not heard of a DNA vaccine yet. In fact, right now, Harvard Medical School are trying a DNA vaccine. It has not yet been approved.
Yeah.
So nobody should be worried about DNA genetic makeup. That cannot happen. So far, we are on the right track. Yeah, back to you.
Thank you very much for that assurance. With this assurance, I think I want our audience to tell us, are you a little more, are you clearer now? Will you be able to embrace the vaccine? Is the suspicion about this vaccine melting away now? Or what else would we need us to say to ensure that our people embrace the vaccine and they are able to stay safe? That's all we want. That we feel reassured, we feel informed, and with information, we can make choices that benefit us as a community and as families and as countries.
Yeah, and maybe Maggie can add, when you get the vaccine, it triggers an immune response. Now, when you see the side effects like pain at the injection site, it means all your warriors, the antibodies, the white blood cells are running to that place, and that's why you feel a bit of pain, the hand becomes a bit heavy, and when you find fever, low-grade fever, slight headaches, a bit of malaise and fatigue, not so much to cause you to go to hospital, but you know you've been vaccinated, you should be happy. It means that your body is actually working. When you trigger an immune response, it means that the side effects are showing that your body is responding. However, if you've got serious adverse events following that immunization, then you can go to your nearest health facility and have your doctors check you up. And by the way, when you get this injection, the actual vaccination or the actual immunological response takes place after 2 weeks. So you might actually get coronavirus disease within that 2 weeks and wonder, but I was vaccinated the other day, how am I getting COVID? Because your body takes like 2 weeks to develop the memory so that you'll remember. For example, if you travel to a country or a county that has got these people infected, then you've been vaccinated, the body will just know, oh, I know this guy. This guy, we dealt with you the other day. And, the body keeps memory of that. And that's the beauty about vaccination.
Wow, you have answered the question that was asked by one of our viewers. Conare had asked, when one receives the vaccine, does that mean you test positive for COVID-19? I think you just answered it.
Yes.
Because it's in your body right now, you're fighting.
No, so the vaccine is, no, you will not test positive for COVID.
Oh, I thought that's what you said.
You're developing antibodies.
Yes.
But the vaccine is doing the test that we have for the vaccine is actually testing for the virus itself. So it's a PCR, which is testing for it's not an antibody test. It's an antigen test. So it will not test positive.
Oh, okay.
But you can test, but you will test positive if you have the disease. But the vaccine will not cause you to test positive. You understand?
So I thought this question may be arising from the other one. You said you have a weakened virus introduced to your body. So if you test immediately after the vaccine, then wouldn't you show that you have that weakened bacteria?
You see, the PCR that she's talking about looks at the antigen itself. And the antigen contains all the components of the virus. So when you go for this testing, the virus, the vaccine triggers an immune response, but when you go for testing, it will not show that you have this antigen because it is not the real virus that you are given. You are given a different makeup. You understand me? However, studies are now going on. If you are using an antibody test, because antibodies are created after you have triggered the immune response, then chances are you might the body will actually tell whoever is testing that yes, this person might have been exposed to this virus, but we know you are just vaccinated. So we have got antigens and antibodies, and those are different. So an antibody is a response.
Yes.
The body is responding. Those are the warriors, the guys who want to fight against this potential virus. However, the vaccine is not the virus itself. That's why you have got various models. First, we have mRNAs. We have got those that the traditional approach, where we had the weakened or attenuated viruses. We have the adenoviruses that she has mentioned. So they are not the actual virus itself, because if they inject you the real virus, then you go down with COVID.
Yes, and
so I'm agreeing with Ken actually, because when we test we don't use antibody tests to test for COVID, because you might after you've already cleared the disease, you will still have, when you talk about having immunity for, several months after, we mean you have antibodies to it. So when you're talking about COVID infection, we're actually talking about the virus being able to be picked through the PCR test. That is the test that we've been doing through the, the nasal swab, the throat swabs. So that one should not test positive. If it tests positive, even after you've had the vaccine, then it means you have a COVID infection going on.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and when you're having a COVID infection going on, what do you do? Do you go for the vaccine or not again? Just clarify that.
Okay, great. So the vaccine is, as we all know, the vaccine is very good, but it's not recommended to be given during an active COVID infection. So ideally, you want to clear the COVID infection, and then you can get the vaccine. The guidance in terms of how soon after you've had the infection you should get the vaccine is varied. Most people tend to clear, the virus within 2 or so weeks. Between 2 and 4 weeks, you'll have actually cleared the virus, in which case you can actually get the vaccine. However, if somebody has been treated with monoclonal antibodies or plasma, I think we know about people donating plasma. If you've been treated with that, then you need to actually not be vaccinated before 3 months, before 90 days are over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
But we don't vaccinate during active COVID disease. Wait for it to clear. And also, you do have some level of immunity, so you don't have to just wait immediately. It's cleared. Let me go tomorrow. You can take a few weeks. Yes, but it's still recommended to get it even after having COVID.
Fantastic. There's another question that had been asked. This is a last week's question. What's the timeline between the first dose of the vaccine and the second one? I think you talked about it a little, but I think you mentioned that each vaccine is different or the same?
Yes, each vaccine is different, and we follow the manufacturer's recommendation. As Ken mentioned earlier, when they're doing those clinical trials, they're testing, the correct dose. They're testing. They're looking for, any toxicity or, safety. But they're also trying to figure out how soon after the first dose should we repeat.
Yes.
So in the case of the Johnson & Johnson one, we only need 1 dose. So there's no, the case of a repeat dose doesn't arise. For AstraZeneca, we are actually giving 8 weeks. It's been shown to be safe if administered even after, to even trigger a good increased immune response even after 8-12 weeks. So in Kenya right now, we're doing 8 weeks apart. So when you go for your first vaccine, they will tell you on what date you need to come back for your second one. So I'm not sure for the Pfizer and Moderna, is it 1 month? I don't remember.
For the Pfizer and Moderna, it's 4 weeks apart. Interestingly, in Kenya, we are separating the first dose and the second dose for 8 weeks. And that's the AstraZeneca, not virus, vaccine. Yes. But for Moderna and Pfizer, it's 4 weeks apart. I just wanted to chime in a little bit and say that right now, nobody has known. Of course, all these vaccines are protecting you for at least 6 months, but we do not know to what extent they are going to take care of you. So we are going to, for example, the yellow fever vaccines and others, some of them are one-shot covered for life. So nobody knows yet for how long will you be covered. So we shall still stand guided by WHO and all other research scientists that are doing all these researches to tell us that after, this is 2021, after you get your 2 doses, what happens in 2022? So you still need to keep on the straight and narrow, the golden rules we talked about last time, taking care of yourself, because you do not know how this will pan out, and you are waiting for science to guide this process.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. The last question, we have one last question here. It has disappeared. It has come. This question is in 2 parts. One, are kids viable? We talked about that, but somebody still asked that question. Can kids still take the vaccine and be safe? But the second part of it, or is it not cut out for them because they are carriers? So, are we, tell us, are kids carriers in the first place?
Kids are not carriers. Kids also get COVID, but they tend to have generally they tend to have milder disease. Though right now with this, I think maybe with the variants, even in the West, they're actually reporting, illness in even younger populations, so younger adults and even children. But thankfully, they've been really weathering COVID quite well. Okay. But however, the vaccines, as Ken mentioned, when he took us through the different stages of clinical trials, we first test in the lab animals, we test in healthy volunteers, and then the next stage you're actually testing the target population. So for sure, vaccines so right now we know it's safe in adults.
Yes.
studies for safety in children are actually ongoing.
Right.
So we'll get that information. Even, I think I mentioned last week that even some are even testing safety in infants. So each of the vaccines will let us know, we will know which ones are safe to administer to what age as that data comes out. So we're not saying children should never get the vaccine, but right now it's not recommended for them because we don't yet have the data. Once the data is in, then we'll be able to guide. The ideal is to have actually everyone vaccinated, but only we'll have to be guided by science.
Thank you. There's another question. And I think you have tackled it a bit, but let me just read it for us. There has been concerns about the AstraZeneca vaccine, that it has a close relationship. It has a close relationship with blood clots. True or false?
Well, we used to tackle this last time, but maybe never delve deeper into it. There are those allegations that the AstraZeneca vaccine has, it brings about blood clots. However, so many agencies have gone into research into this, and they have come up with very sober evidence that we do not have any causal link between the AstraZeneca vaccine and blood clots. And as a matter of fact, the World Health Organization has also made it crystal clear that the vaccine does not bring in such adverse events as blood clots. And by the way, just to mention, for all these vaccines that are now in the market, whether Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, none of those people who were in the clinical trials died. Nobody got COVID. It's just good to say that because people are really speculating, and if indeed anybody got an adverse event such as blood clots, or if anybody died of that, then no World Health body, no approval, no regulatory body would accept the utilization of those vaccines across board. So just to mention that, that is good for people to know that.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe I can add something. Thanks, Ken. Yeah, actually, really, the clinical trials were quite extensively done. Even the numbers of people enrolled in the clinical trials are actually even above what you'd generally be required for most of the clinical trials. As Ken said, we don't know that there is no evidence linking the clots to the vaccine. So we're not saying that it can never cause. However, they've not been able to prove the association between the clot and the vaccine. When you look at, even in the general population, at any one time, even if you walk in the streets of Kenya, you will find people develop clots at a particular, frequency. The frequency of people developing clots after getting vaccination is actually much lower than in the general population. Because you have people, I think we've heard of DVT, we've heard of people with all manner of clots. So even before COVID, people would develop clots anyway. So the frequency of developing clots in the general population is much higher than the frequency in which you see clots among the vaccinated population. So we need to know, we need to have that in mind also, just not think that any clot is COVID, is the vaccine. Two, COVID itself actually does cause clots at an even much higher frequency. I think it's 1 in 30, 1 in 50 or thereabouts. So anyway, I'm not trying to mix the two, but I'm just saying that just because you've had a clot doesn't mean that it could be because of COVID. It could be because of some other underlying conditions. However, that doesn't also, we are not ruling it out. I think the regulatory agencies are still tracking to try and establish the truth. I know in the UK there's some linkage with something called heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. So they're actually saying if you have a clotting tendency or a bleeding tendency, then you want to discuss with your doctor before. If you have such concerns, you can discuss with your doctor beforehand. But so far, they've not been able to actually link, to actually, conclusively say that this is because of COVID, of the vaccine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And as a matter of fact, Maggie, this vaccine is being rolled out in phases globally because of its shortage. So far they have given over 100 million doses, and still we are waiting for more doses. For example, Brazil was waiting for like 500,000, 500 million doses, but they just realized there's a shortage, so they need to go down to, plan B. The thing is, this vaccine needs to be, people need to understand that the people with clots, for example, comorbidities, they are highly prioritized. Anyone with diabetes, anyone with hypertension, anyone with cancer, tuberculosis, HIV, the people with all those diseases, kidney failure, or not kidney failure, but kidney disease, heart diseases, the people with those comorbidities are actually supposed to take this vaccine even before the other parts of the population. So it is important for those people who are sick to get it. And in Kenya, they actually placed in the second, what do I call it? We have the first phase, the second phase. The first phase is for frontliners, and the second phase we have the elderly and those with comorbidities.
Right.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. The questions are coming, so I want us to take a short break, then we answer a few more that have come. But I want to thank you guys for informing us so well. And I can read something that has been shared. One comment from Priska Wajesh. She says, thank you so much for sharing about the side effects of the virus. And she has a question which we shall address later. What are examples of those adverse side effects? So don't go anywhere. When we come back, we respond to that question and any others that are coming. Stay with us.
He won the victory. He reigns on high. Our God is risen.
Welcome back, guys. Guess what? You are here and we are here. So we're going to go on having this amazing conversation. Some of you have said thank you so much for this information. I have found it useful. There's a question that we want to answer. It was asked before by one of the ladies. Her name is Priska Waja. She's saying, what are the examples of the adverse side effects of the virus? Of the vaccine, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm in the game of countries.
Some of the expected ones are really what Ken described. So, fever. Some of the things that you can experience include, fever, and many people are experiencing fever, pain, heaviness of the arm. It tends to be the left arm, muscle aches. Some people might end up with tummy, issues like running tummy, but it's mild. It tends to clear within a few days. So those are the general ones. I would say though that if you tend to have severe allergies, like egg protein allergies and other severe allergies, or you've reacted to a vaccine before, then you may want to first of all discuss it with your doctor to see whether it's actually safe for you. Any other significant event, we call them adverse events following immunization, not because necessarily of immunization. So if you experience anything significant after you've had the immunization, even if you think it's linked or not linked to the vaccine, please report it. Which is why sometimes you'll hear of, so for instance, for sure, the issue you're talking about clots. If you get a clot, report it. Or, I'm sure your doctor will diagnose the clot. If you get any issue, report it. It may not, often they're not caused by the vaccine, but any adverse event after somebody has been immunized needs to be reported.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's linked to it, including any significant allergic reaction, changes in blood pressure or whatever. You need to report them. They have not been shown to be linked to this vaccine.
Nausea and vomiting as well.
Yeah, so those significant ones have not been shown to be linked to this vaccine. I am just saying that because somebody asked what adverse events should we watch out for. Anything that destabilizes your body, whether you think because it's because of the vaccine or not, please report it.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's a good one. So, Ken, help us respond to this one. What is the difference, someone is asking, between Covax, Pfizer, and Moderna vaccines?
So we have Pfizer is a pharmaceutical company who also do their own clinical trials, and they come up with this vaccine, just like we have Johnson & Johnson, Moderna. Those are the manufacturing companies. So COVAX is also the name of the vaccine. A company can give a vaccine a name, like now COVAX, we have Covishield. So the vaccines are named by the people who have manufactured it. So those are trade names just for purposes of branding and identification.
So maybe I'll add something though. WHO, Gavi, and others have come up together with what they're calling the COVAX. It's a facility as well to procure vaccines. As you know, when it's a pandemic, it affects the whole world. So we have those guys who have got a lot of money and those guys who don't have money. So the idea was really to, one, support the rapid development of the vaccines by putting aside money for that, but also to help governments around the world procure. So that facility is also called COVAX. It's called COVAX. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. That's a good explanation. Thank you so much. I think we have cleared the questions so far. Then we can quickly move to another part of this conversation. We wanted to talk about the impact of not just the vaccine, or both the vaccine and COVID, the virus itself, on mental health. Guys have reported that there's so much anxiety associated with the vaccine. How does that affect the brain or the mind? And when guys have, during this lockdown season, we had the first lockdown in Kenya last year, and this year we're on a second lockdown. How is it affecting from a not medical health now, but although both actually, but from also from a public health point of view? What are the people experiencing?
Maybe before we go there, I want Ken to answer that question.
Yes.
But there's something we're discussing during the break regarding pregnancy.
Yes.
Can I say something about that and vaccination? I know there's been a lot of questions. In fact, for the last few days, I've been fielding questions from friends about whether you should be vaccinated during pregnancy, and I thought it's just useful to talk about it here. We've had these vaccines for the last 4 months. So there hasn't been sufficient research carried out on the impact of the vaccine. And as Ken earlier said, that we don't tend to do these clinical trials on pregnant women and stuff like that. We tend to start with
the healthier population
who are not pregnant, etc. Then maybe later on we can actually target them. Observation. So clinical trials are randomized controlled trials. They're among the highest level of evidence. So because you're having people who are being exposed to two different things, and you're seeing the difference in the two groups. However, we also have something called observational studies, which is where you're actually seeing people who they may not have been experimentally exposed to something, but for some reason they took it, and you're able to track them and follow them up over time. The quality of evidence is not as high as the randomized control trials, but we're also able to infer from it. So, so based on what the regulators are seeing, CDC and them, they're actually saying that there doesn't seem to be any harm from what they are seeing caused to pregnant women. In fact, they're actually being able to transmit the antibodies to the infant, to the fetus. And even breastfeeding women are able to transmit to the breastfeeding children. However, I just want to say that we tend to want to base our decisions on science and solid evidence, so we don't yet have that randomized control trial level evidence that it's safe in pregnancy. However, pregnant women, and especially those with comorbidities, may have very severe COVID if they get infected. So the recommendation really is, so most of these agencies are not opposed to, they actually say if a woman comes and she's pregnant, she wants a vaccine, don't stop them, let them have it. However, I know that doesn't help them make that decision. I think it's a decision that you need to make together with your doctor, looking at your risk, any comorbidities, your risk of exposure to COVID, as we observe. So they haven't reported any side effects yet, but honestly, 4 months is too long to know whether there's any long-term impact.
Is it too long or too short?
I mean, sorry, too short.
Too short.
To know whether there's any long-term. I know I've not
Yeah.
given the answer that anybody really wants to know, but that's really where the evidence is at. Generally, they're not opposed to it, but I would say discuss it with your doctor based on your clinical status and everything.
Perfect. I think that's good counsel right there. Yes, Ken.
Yes, thank you, Frida, for that. So should we tell them not to fear getting pregnant? Guys may say, now because of COVID, we're not going to get pregnant anymore.
We can still need kids.
Yeah, guys, get pregnant if you want to, but of course, observing family planning, Don't. Anyway, that's another discussion altogether. So you are bringing in a new dimension on mental health. And mental health is one of those neglected facets of health. As a matter of fact, the World Health Organization defines health as the complete well-being of someone mentally, socially, physically, and not just the mere absence of disease or infirmity. So you might be completely well with regards to your COVID negative, diabetes, you don't have hypertension, but you are really stressed and depressed. So many opportunities have gone with the wind, especially when COVID came into play. So many businesses have been closed. So many of us who are used to working, hitting the trophy, going to work, meeting real people and going back home. But now you have to start working in new ways. We have got a new normal. So some of us have never worked from home. Like me, I started working from home last year because of COVID, thanks to my organization. So I would say that we were not prepared for such a phase. And now we are being forced to deal with stresses that we have not seen before. For example, if I wake up in the morning and I was used to going to work, now I have to enter a Zoom call or a Teams meeting, and you have to be glued on the screen for long hours, and you're not talking to real people, but you're talking to people virtually. And yet we are socially designed. We were wired to communicate. We were wired to interact with people. But again, COVID is here. So right now people are exploring, maybe as you continue, we should talk more about how can we enhance our mental health as we work from home, and also as we lose all these great opportunities, and some are also getting new opportunities. Yes.
Wow. So, but are there some identifiable effects on the mind that we have seen as a result of COVID-19?
So we have got what we call feel-good hormones. Like when you are happy, you have worked out, or you have just watched a good movie, or maybe you have watched comedy. You feel good and you laugh, and you are producing so many feel-good hormones within your brain. But when we are you have a gloomy day and you are stressed, you produce a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol is a stress hormone. And the more production of cortisol within your brain, then you also reduce your immunity. And you find actually some studies say 80% of diseases are contributed to by our the body having low immunity just because of stress and depression. So stress and depression are actually non-communicable diseases, if you're to speak about it from a health perspective. And from an epidemiology angle, right now, I would say in this country, we suffer 50-50. We have got 50% communicable diseases and 50% non-communicable diseases. Non-communicable diseases are those diseases that you cannot just spread by contact. Like COVID is very infectious, very communicable. However, as much as we have this pandemic, which is very communicable by breathing and everything else, we also have another silent brewing epidemic, the mental health epidemic. People are not
Brewing epidemic?
normal. We are no longer interacting as we should. And we are most of the time on gadgets. Most of the time on gadgets. And when your eyes are fully on gadgets, you produce more stress hormones, and then you become sickly, and you can easily now become more susceptible to COVID-19 and other diseases. So mental health is one facet of public health that's not been looked into by many people, but right now, because of COVID, we now want to look at it better and invest in it so that people can have schedules. For example, if you wake up in the morning, what do? You need to have a routine. For example, if you want to work from 8 to 10, then at 10:30 to 10, to 11, maybe 30 minutes, take a walk. Get out of the house, because you can get, what do we call that disease? When you're just so much in the indoors, you may not be able to work properly. So go take a walk, loosen up, get a refreshment from the air, see the trees. Actually, mental health is so much linked to looking at green places, walk in the forest, go to Karura Forest, for example, take a walk in your estate, call someone. And when you sit again for another 2 hours, wake up again at 1 p.m. That's what I usually do. At 1 to 2, I take laps, I walk around my estate, and then get back to your meetings. So that's how we might need to cope with this particular mental health pandemic.
Wow. I love those coping techniques that we introduced. I must say, the other day I went to meet a friend. We haven't met, we're in lockdown, people are not meeting. But we need to discuss an important subject. But I can tell you, we discussed everything, including politics and air and strange abstract things like global warming. And with such joy, because we haven't talked a lot. So I want to agree with you that we were wired for communication, and we were wired for social interaction. And that actually has been affected adversely by COVID.
I think Ken has really described it very well, and also your experience really shows us where we are at. I think, though, we tend to, and I agree with everything that's been said, but we also tend to forget the extremes of age. We have our elderly people who are not seeing their grandchildren.
Yes.
Again, it's a cause of mental health, mental health challenges. I have people who tell me, we also, fine, we need to prevent COVID, but we also need to be happy to see our grandchildren. So we need to, as we are thinking about mental health and how it affects us and maybe the working age and all, let's not forget our elderly people who've been now isolated for a long time. You didn't go home for Christmas, you didn't go home for Easter last year, Easter this year. How then do we support them? And I know that sometimes mental health is really why we're actually dropping our guard and deciding, come and buy, I'm going to meet, so and so. And that then is contributing towards these new waves. So I think we need to be conscious. And some of the best, practices I've seen are people even, I know we've been having, for instance, regular Zoom meetings with my family, with my, greater family for more than a year, regular ones. It's not as good as actually seeing each other, but maybe I would encourage families to see what they can do so that you're alleviating mental suffering, but in a COVID-compliant manner. So even if it means, having video calls or whatever. I think let's not forget the elderly, because already they're alone and they're not seeing us, and that gives them a lot of hope. Children as well. In many cases, they're not playing. And children, they need to play. They need to have both structured and unstructured play. How are we able to support them so that they are also, their mental health is not affected? Then secondly, if they see us stressed, maybe we've lost people. I remember yesterday, my kids asked me, so what, we're talking about somebody who just passed on. And I'm not really sure to what impact it has on them when they hear, so-and-so has passed on, so-and-so has gone to be with Jesus, so-and-so. I think even for me, it's affecting me. So maybe just to be conscious about that they are also, they could also be having their own mental health issues, so how do we support them? And I think even just being available to play and so on is extremely important. I don't know if we have a lot of time, but one of the things that I have seen in terms of, not for us, in terms of coping, I'm working for an organization, and like some of the things that they've actually recently proposed. If you don't have to have a video meeting, can we have as many meetings as possible being, so you don't have to show your face, so that you can take it walking, as Ken said. Can organizations set norms such that maybe for some meetings, if you're going to have video, let us tell everybody this one will be required to be in front of a computer, let's have video. But for those people can take walking, let us encourage that. The one that you can take, maybe holding your baby or your cat or whatever, so that people are, because this is the new normal, or the new abnormal, but we're going to be here for a while, and maybe life may not go back to what it was beforehand. Maybe it doesn't even need to go back to what it was beforehand, but how then do we support people as they are working to cope in these times, Do we have some times when you say we'll not do Zoom meetings for maybe all of a particular day or whatever, so that people can actually, that day they can actually work, that day they can spend time with their families and do other meaningful things. So I think there's this opportunity for organizations to rethink how to support the mental health of their staff during these times.
Wow.
Yeah. And maybe I can add, mental health has actually been exposed, or rather the illnesses have been exposed by COVID-19. Even before COVID-19, we had a lot of mental health issues. They're not just begun, they were there.
Right.
I know, Maggie, you remember back in the day when you're traveling, I don't know whether you traveled by bus, maybe to Western or to Mombasa, and you're seated to someone you don't even know. And you just find yourself talking to this guy. Because back in the day, we had Mulika Muizis. Even there's a time you didn't even have Mulika Muizis themselves. You were just getting, who has the newspaper, you know? And then you talk about what you're seeing there. And you end up befriending this person and probably take their number at the end of the journey. But nowadays, just look, even just right here in Nairobi, when people enter a matatu, you just see 14 flashy things and everybody's just scrolling up and down. Nobody's talking to the other person. If you go to countries like Japan, they have suicide just because of gadgets.
Right.
You enter a train and you find this one is on tablet, laptop, everyone is on a gadget. And just the other day, the government of Japan has put up a ministry of loneliness. The government is so responsive. They are saying now we want to have a minister who will be taking care of loneliness. Because sometimes people even die in their households and they even rot away for 2 days or 3 days. Nobody knows because you don't have any social connection. Nobody knows about you. So thank God we have some structures like here, the Real Group and everything, where people need to be checking on one another. And it is important to have friends who also keep you accountable and make sure that you're on the straight and narrow. Now you can imagine that was before COVID. We were still getting so antisocial through the social medium. Interesting, it's called social media, but it's the anti-social medium. You get to a meeting and everybody is like, okay, I can look at my emails. We do not want to converse anymore. And what happens? We become more sick. We become more depressed and we become more susceptible, not just to COVID, but to also non-communicable diseases like cancer and hypertension, because they all are interlinked in one or the other. So we need to rise up to the occasion and start addressing this and connect, like the way Frida said, in their family they have these Zoom calls. So we can leverage on technology to have meetings with our friends, chamas, all those people who make us feel good about ourselves. Again, on mental health, do not hang out with those guys who pull you down, Hang out with the people who make you, feel good about yourself sometimes, so that you can, reduce the stress and, take life easy. And lastly, Maggie, I can get excited about this topic. We can't stop talking about mental health without looking at food. When you're at home on Zoom, Frida, how many times do you snack? You might want, okay, get the nuts, you want, get me bread, get me juice. You find yourself naturally, subconsciously walking to the fridge and taking a cold drink. And obesity, weight becomes a real deal. So all these things are the soft underbelly of COVID-19, which we are not addressing. as a nation, as families, as churches. And we need to start looking at how can we develop good habits, because we are now in a new normal that you will stop the temptation to go to the fridge and wait for your scheduled meal time. That you don't have to eat just because food is there, but you need to eat when you're hungry.
Right.
So those are skills that we need to pass on people. And I like the fact that you have this platform where we can have these conversations going.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you
Back to
so much. Oh, wow, that's close to a parting shot. That was such good counsel to people. And Mamlaka, I want to remind us that keep calling each other. At least we can use social media to our advantage. Like our real group members, let's call each other. Oh, and to you, if you're not in a real group, you may not get a nice call from a friend, but do find a place where you can call somebody, leverage what you have, talk to family, talk to friends, get out of the house, take care of the bad hormone that is giving us stress. That's what I hear you saying, Dr.
Cortisol, yes.
Cortisol, right. Any parting shot, Frida?
Just really, I think maybe your emphasis what Ken said, let's think of this holistically. Let's think about how to protect ourselves from COVID, how to protect ourselves from the other effects of either COVID or because of how we reacted to COVID, so mental health and so on. So let's protect everybody as far as possible, including getting vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much. I don't think I can thank you enough for your time. Both of you have been invaluable. Thank you so much. I know you're busy guys, but you took time to come and speak to us about issues that concern us all as a church and as a country actually. Even actually globally, we are concerned about the same issues. So I really want to say thank you so much for your invaluable insightfulness. That was great. And Mamlaka, thank you so much. This is me, your host, Maggie Muhia, and I'm so delighted that you could spend this time together. We'll be back. Stay tuned. Tell your friends. Let's all learn together. Let's grow together. Let's protect the other belly. COVID has revealed to us that it's more than meets the eye. Let's watch that. See you next week. God bless you all.